Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 19 female, am at the center of a family meltdown, and while I think I'm justified in what I did, I'm starting to question if I could have handled it better. Buckle up, this is a long one. Some backstory. My parents divorced when I was 12. It was ugly and drawn out, and in the end, my dad decided to walk away from it all. The house we lived in had actually been a gift to him from his parents. He grew up in that house, and when he married my mom, they moved in together. But during the divorce, he decided to sign it over to me. He didn't want me to lose my childhood home or deal with any more instability. So the agreement was that my mom and I would live there until I grew up and moved out. I'd always planned to let my mom stay there as long as she wanted, even after I left for college or started my own life. It was my way of showing gratitude for everything she did for me. Fast forward to a couple of years ago. My mom, 42 female, started dating Tom, 47 male. From the beginning, I wasn't a fan. Tom was the kind of guy who's always trying to take charge of situations that don't involve him. He had this air of entitlement and loves to give unsolicited advice about how everyone else should live their lives. But my mom seemed happy for the first time in a long time, so I kept my mouth shut. Then, 2 years ago, she married him, and Tom and his daughter, Sophie, 16 female, moved into the house. That's when everything started to go downhill. Sophie is a handful. She's spoiled, entitled, and incredibly rude. She always needs to be the center of attention, and if she's not, she'll go out of her way to make things miserable for everyone around her. She's also ridiculously competitive with me, for reasons I can't even begin to understand. She copies everything I do, the clothes I wear, the way I talk, even the hobbies I'm into. If I buy a new outfit, she'll buy the exact same thing and then try to act like I'm the one copying her. If I mention an interest in something, she suddenly becomes an expert in it. My friends can't stand her because she's arrogant and loves to put people down to make herself feel superior. And because Tom babies her, she gets away with it. Tom, on the other hand, became overbearing. He thinks he's the head of the household, even in a house that's not his. He would make little rules about how things should be done, like what kind of groceries we could buy or how the furniture should be arranged. He constantly reminded me that I needed to be a good role model for Sophie and would criticize me if he thought I wasn't setting the right example. It was infuriating. I felt like a guest in my own home, and my mom just let it happen because she didn't want to rock the boat. Tom's interference wasn't limited to the household. He would try to get involved in my personal life as well. If I had friends over, he'd make unnecessary comments about how I should focus more on my studies or how I should consider hanging out with a better crowd. If I ever went out, he'd ask a million questions about where I was going and who I was going with. It felt suffocating. My mom, instead of standing up for me, would just shrug and say that he was trying to be a good father figure. Things came to a head last weekend. For months, I'd been planning a trip to the seaside with my friends. It was going to be a much-needed break before I started college, and I'd been saving up for it for ages. A few days before the trip, Tom approached me and said I needed to take Sophie with me. I told him no. This was a trip I planned with my friends, and frankly, none of us wanted her there. He started lecturing me about how family comes first and how I needed to be a better sister. I told him, very calmly, that Sophie isn't my sister, and I'm not her babysitter. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. The next day, Tom announced that he and my mom were planning a trip to the seaside as well, and he expected me to cancel my plans and join them instead. I couldn't believe it. I told him I wasn't changing my plans to accommodate him or Sophie, and I left for my trip as scheduled. When I came back home, I found the locks had been changed. I couldn't get in. At first, I thought there had been some kind of mistake, but when I called my mom, she didn't answer. When I called Tom, he smugly informed me that since I didn't respect his family, I was no longer welcome in his house. He told me I needed to grow up and learn some responsibility. He also said that they, my mom, him, and Sophie, had gone out for dinner and would talk to me when they returned. I was absolutely livid. I couldn't believe the audacity of it. This was my house. It's legally mine. Tom had no right to lock me out. I was standing there in the driveway, embarrassed and furious, and I realized I wasn't going to wait around for them to come back and talk. I called the police and explained the situation. When they arrived, I showed them the paperwork screenshots of which I had on my phone, proving I'm the legal owner of the house. Tom tried to argue when he finally showed up, saying that he was keeping the house safe and that it was their home too. The cops weren't having it. They told him he had no right to change the locks and made him give me the new keys. The whole time, he was glaring at me like I was the villain. Once I got back inside, I told Tom and Sophie they had 48 hours to pack their things and leave. I didn't want them in my house anymore. My mom was furious when she heard that. She started yelling at me, calling me ungrateful and selfish, and accusing me of trying to ruin her marriage. I told her that if she wanted to stay with Tom, that was her choice, but he and Sophie were no longer welcome under my roof. My mom begged me to reconsider, but I stood firm. This was the last straw for me. Well, my mom chose Tom. She packed her things and left with him and Sophie. Before she walked out the door, she told me she never wanted to see me again and that I was a horrible daughter. I haven't heard from her since. Now I'm sitting here in this big empty house, wondering if I overreacted. On one hand, I feel justified. Tom had no right to lock me out of my home, and I'm tired of Sophie's antics and Tom's overbearing behavior. On the other hand, I can't help but feel guilty for how things ended with my mom. I was planning to let her live here as long as she wanted, but I feel like she completely betrayed me by siding with Tom and letting him treat me this way. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for calling the cops and kicking Tom and Sophie from my house? Let me get this straight. Tom moves into OP's house, tries to take over like he owns the place, treats OP like OP is some tenant instead of the homeowner, and then has the audacity to lock her out? OP handled this way better than I would have. Calling the police was absolutely the right move, and it's ridiculous that OP's mom allowed him to get away with this behavior for so long. Honestly, it sounds like she's blinded by her relationship with him and isn't willing to see how toxic he is. Not just to OP, but to her too. OP stood up for herself, which is more than a lot of people in her situation might have done. If she chooses Tom over her own child, that's her decision, but it doesn't make OP wrong for setting boundaries in her own home. And now let's hear the community's opinion. OP, this is honestly heartbreaking to read. Not the a-hole at all. Tom sounds like a controlling nightmare, and Sophie is just following in his footsteps. It's one thing for him to have a personality clash with you, but locking you out of your own house crosses every possible line. Your mom choosing to support him in this situation is incredibly disappointing, but it's not your fault. You did what you needed to do to protect yourself and your property. And let's not forget that your dad entrusted this house to you for a reason, probably because he knew how your mom could be manipulated. I hope she realizes how much she's given up by siding with Tom, but if not, that's on her. You're allowed to prioritize yourself here. Not the a-hole, and I can't believe you're even questioning yourself. Tom and Sophie clearly have no respect for you or your home. It's bad enough that Sophie acts entitled and rude, but Tom's actions are straight up manipulative and aggressive. Changing the locks while you were gone was a calculated move to undermine you, and it's disgusting that your mom went along with it. You're right to stand your ground, and honestly, I'm impressed with how calm and collected you were during the whole thing. Calling the cops was a bold but necessary move. Your mom made her choice, and while it's painful, you shouldn't feel guilty for doing what you had to do. This is such a tough situation, OP. You are absolutely not the a-hole, but I understand why you're feeling conflicted. On the one hand, you were 100% justified in kicking Tom and Sophie out. They disrespected you, your home, and the boundaries you set. But on the other hand, it's natural to feel hurt about how things ended with your mom. She's the one who put you in this position by siding with Tom, and she needs to take responsibility for that. I wonder if, down the line, she'll realize what she's done and try to mend things with you. For now, though, focus on yourself and rebuilding your peace. You've been through so much, and you deserve to feel safe and respected in your own home. Over a year and a half ago, I learned, thanks to modern-day ancestry DNA kits, that I fathered a child over 17 years ago with an ex-fling right before starting college. Both her mother and husband kept us from knowing about each other because he didn't want me involved as part of forgiving her for her apparent infidelity. We still learned the truth. After that, we wanted to know everything about each other. Sadie, my daughter, is such a wonderful person. I've been really blessed to get to know her and be there for her as her father. Right now, she still has a complicated relationship with her mom. As angry as I've been at them for lying to me, I'm learning to get past it while also telling Sadie to give them a chance. She still doesn't want to, and asked to come live with me as soon as she's 18, until she can have enough to be on her own. Since this weekend was her 18th birthday, she wanted the whole family to go out to eat together. So it was them, her maternal grandparents and cousins, my family as well, eating together. Everyone brought their gifts. My gift to her that I didn't tell her about, because I wanted it to be a surprise, was not only plane tickets for us to go camping in Yosemite once she graduates from high school next month, but it was also to show her I've set up a college fund for her so she doesn't have to worry about student loans or financial aid. My daughter was beyond happy. I've never seen her cry that way from excitement. It was very emotional for me to make her so happy like that. The only problem that came after was her mom ridiculing me for showing them up in front of everyone, getting her these big expensive gifts. Her husband felt bad ever since that dinner because the only thing they gave her was a bracelet with a family photo. She acts like Sadie not being as happy with their gift had anything to do with what I got her, when the reality was she didn't want them there. Her grandma convinced her to let them, but obviously I didn't say that because I'd feel like a jerk. But I did say doing this for my daughter wasn't an act like I'm being better than them. It was to give her something she's always wanted and also invest in her future when I couldn't be there in her past. She continues to accuse me of purposely doing this to embarrass them, not even discussing with them what I was planning on doing and getting their okay ahead of time. She seems genuinely upset about it, and I really don't know if I stepped over a line. Sadie was going to be 18 when I made that decision, so it didn't seem like it was necessary to discuss it with them. Her husband even messaged me this morning asking wasn't it enough that Sadie is moving with me and I didn't have to twist the knife further by winning her over with money. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They messed up and kept your daughter from you. That's unforgivable in my book. You didn't get to see her grow up. Worse, it sounds like she didn't find out from them. You can be part of her future, and you're showing her you will, but nothing can make up for the missed years. I don't think her mom and stepdad would ever have told her, and she knows that. Mom feels cross she got caught, but isn't accepting the blame for what she did. Not your problem. Not the a-hole. Why are they making everything about them? It was nice and very thoughtful of you. They're just mad, but I hope they get over it ASAP, or their relationship that they may have with Sadie will be over with super quick. I'm sorry you missed out on her whole childhood. That's terrible. I strongly dislike women who do things like this. Not the a-hole. Let me get this straight. You are helping that child to avoid student loans, which, to my memory, require someone to co-sign, which was probably going to be them. And they're pissed? That's just as much a gift for them as for you. Not the a-hole. She's 18 and wants to get to know you. That's wonderful for both of you. Of course her mother and stepfather are pissed. Now they have years of lies to explain. That is not your problem. As long as you keep it about your relationship with your kid, then quite frankly, screw them. They made plenty of decisions about your child for you. You owe them nothing, and any fallout is completely on them. Go you. Be the best dad you can be to that girl if that's what you truly want. Background. My parents had a bad divorce, several counts of infidelity on both sides, and neither ended up wanting me, so I grew up with my maternal grandparents and younger cousin. Both my mom and dad have families now and didn't pay any support or visit me. Because of this, my paternal grandpa helped my maternal grandparents financially and willed me everything he had. Grandpa died 3 months ago and left me his house, car, and a small fortune. Dad is still mad about this, but that's a story for another day. After being a responsible adult for the most part, I decided to spend some of it and treat myself to some cool new tech and upgrade my old ones. I built a new PC, got a new phone, new iPad, new headphones, and pretty much everything you could think of. I was like a kid in a candy store. I always spent money on tech, so I already had a lot of cool stuff. So I decided to give all of my secondhand toys to my 16-year-old cousin. This included my old gaming laptop, iPad Air, iPhone X, PS4, and generic wireless earphones. Growing up in the same house, we've always been like brothers, so it was only natural. Well, little bro, cousin, posted everything on Instagram to flex and added my name in the post. I didn't see it because I don't have social media. I knew this because the kid called me saying my mom has been calling him, demanding he give her son, my bio half-brother, all the stuff. Said stuff like how it was supposed to be her son's, because I was the real brother. Never seen this kid in my life, mind you. Grandparents wanted nothing to do with her at this point. My mom later got a hold of me. No idea how, but I have a feeling my aunt caved and gave her my number. and asked me if I had any stuff left over for my little brother. I told her I gave my real brother everything. Not gonna lie, it was a bit condescending. And this pissed her off, and she gave me a long speech about family till I hung up and blocked her. I told my girlfriend about this, who knows about the whole situation by the way, and she said while she understood where I was coming from, I was essentially punishing an innocent boy just cause his mom was evil. She even said this could have been an opportunity for us to bond and build a relationship. She's not pushy, but it's starting to make me feel a bit bad. Am I the a-hole? I'm 23 if anyone's wondering, or if it's relevant. Edited to add. Since some people are wondering, yeah, my girlfriend comes from a good family. She's from the typical upper-middle-class, drama-free suburban family. Not the a-hole. Your mom didn't even pay child support and thinks she's entitled to take your stuff? And if you cave on this, OP, suddenly she'll want more from you. She'll keep asking for money or things. She and your dad refuse to see you or pay any child support. They are entitled to absolutely nothing, and I don't think it's worth fighting with them over. Just block them and move on, and have your cousin do the same. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You sound like you have your head screwed on. Your girlfriend, not so much. This would be a teeny red flag to me about staying with her. Her views are bonkers, and I would question if she was working with your bio mom. Not the a-hole. Your mother is an a-hole and has a huge sense of entitlement. If she wants her other son to have all these things, she can buy them herself. That's something a parent can always do. You did the right thing, and I don't think you should give in to your mother about this, or about anything else she ever asks from you. Giving these things to your cousin was a really nice gesture. You shouldn't be made to feel bad by anyone for having done that. Background. My wife comes from a very close-knit family. I'm no contact with my own family, so I always love them like my own. One thing about them, though, is that they're big on practical jokes. They don't record it or anything, but it gets extreme sometimes. Her dad even faked a heart attack. Last year, my wife and her sister got my future brother-in-law, sister-in-law's boyfriend, who I'll call Steve, good by getting one of their friends to pretend to be a girl from his past, calling. Brother-in-law was a player back in the day, and said he was the father of her 5-year-old son. Steve was sweating and panicking for a good few hours, till they revealed it was all a joke. He took it well, but vowed to get revenge. Issue. Last week was my wedding. Because of virus, we didn't have a lot of guests, only her family and like 5 of our friends. Steve was my best man, so we decided he should get payback from what happened before, so I gave him the idea. During the best man speech, Steve was a bit tipsy, but pretended to be hammered drunk. After a short speech about us, he looked at sister-in-law and started giving a heartfelt speech about how she was the love of his life, how she was the best girl in the world. You know, proposal speech. Sister-in-law looked mortified and kept saying, "No, no, not like this." Then Steve got down on one knee and fished out his car keys from his pocket and said, "I love and trust you more than anyone. I'm drunk, so please drive us home." Everyone was silent till father-in-law started laughing his head off, and everyone followed. By everyone, I mean less than 20 people. Even my wife, who looked like she was about to murder someone, was laughing. It was all in good fun, and sister-in-law seemed to take it well. Until the following day, when she chewed both of us up for playing with her feelings, and how we crossed the line. I told her she did far worse to Steve in the past, when she pretended he had a kid somewhere, and even once where she pretended she was cheating on him. I told my wife to never joke about infidelity, but whatever works for them, I guess. Father-in-law and my wife tried calming her down and trying to get her to see the funny side of it, but she wouldn't listen. Like I said, pranks are normal in this family, but sister-in-law is still upset about it. Steve is staying with us right now while sister-in-law is with their parents. They're not breaking up, by the way. Steve and I are starting to feel like crap, but my wife assures us it wasn't bad, and they've done worse in the past. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I mean, if she did pranks about him having a child or her cheating, I'd say it's rightfully deserved for her to have a taste of her own medicine. Everyone sucks here, because these kinds of jokes are bound to land wrong plenty, and they need to get over the ridiculous humor. However, I'll temper my judgment by saying this situation is impossible to evaluate out of context, and the context seems to be a bunch of people who have a sense of humor I completely don't understand. I can't honestly say which prank is the worst, because none of those sound remotely funny. But if I did find them funny, I can't say I wouldn't find the present situation funny, so I guess maybe you knew your audience and this just didn't land right. You broke 3 etiquette rules here. 1. Never propose at another person's wedding. 2. Never fake propose. 3. Never plan a prank at a wedding. Just because your sister-in-law pranks her boyfriend in upsetting ways doesn't mean you should encourage him by giving him a prank idea to do at your own wedding. You, Steve, and your sister-in-law suck here. My work best friend found out that his wife had been cheating on him with a married douchebag for 9 consecutive months of 2019. My friend's mood was shot. He looked absolutely crushed and seemed to be floating through his life. Nothing I said or did with him could cheer him up, no matter how much I tried to help him. He was even weeping publicly at some points. It was pretty terrible to watch. Start of this year, apparently, his wife left affair fog land, started focusing on reconciliation with my best friend, and the mood of my friend seemed to lift, though he did confide in me that he still was struggling with dealing with it all. I recommended him to join the Surviving Infidelity subreddit, read some books, get an individual counselor, the usual advice in dealing with betrayal BS. And he did all that, except he seemed to still be depressed. He told me that his wife seemed to be genuinely remorseful, and even upped the ante with regards to certain aspects of their romance, relationship. But he still felt at odds with the whole idea of reconciliation. Maybe I should have shut up and not spoke here, but I didn't. I told him that his wife may be trying to re-earn his love and fix him all up, but there comes a point where you just can't go on any further with a person anymore, and that there are plenty of women in the world who wouldn't have even texted another man flirtatiously while in a relationship, let alone cheat. I told him life is short, he has no children, and maybe he needed to see if keeping his wife around was going to benefit him and his health in the long run. I said he needed to decide whether he'd have the patience to constantly keep tabs on whether his wife could be faithful for another 40 years of marriage. And then I left it at that. We never spoke of the topic again, and his mood seemed to improve drastically the start of February this year. Well, I found out this week that this whole time, my friend had been pursuing divorce. Surprisingly, his mood has been great, even though he's going through something in divorce I wouldn't wish on anybody. He credits me for inspiring him to live life to its fullest again, and that he wasn't going to drag himself down with a cheater and a liar anyway. I'm telling you, you'd think he won the lottery with how he walked. It's like a weight has been lifted off him. I was happy for him, man. He's my best friend. But his parents, who I truly don't gel well with, rang me up. How they got my number? My best buddy gave it to them, asking them to ask me why my buddy and his wife were divorcing. His parents were furious. They're angry that my best friend seems nonchalant about the whole experience, and are upset about the mental health of the wife, who is apparently crying herself to sleep every night over this. Also, the wife's side of the family, sisters, parents, are crap-talking me for the part I played in my friend's decision to divorce her. I influenced Buddy, apparently. Am I the a-hole? You, my friend, are not the a-hole. The only a-holes are those getting involved in not supporting your buddy, who is the victim of infidelity. He deserves a better partner and parents. Not the a-hole. Your advice was spot on. Is your coworker a toddler, though? Why in the hell did he have mommy and daddy call you to discuss his marriage? That's insane. Not the a-hole. Your best friend is an adult. He makes his own decisions and choices. His parents can duck right off. You aren't liable in any way for being honest. You are a good friend for being honest as well. Side note, good for him. He deserves better and genuinely seems like a nice guy, although a bit of a pushover if he couldn't handle his parents that well. My girlfriend's best friend, let's call her Diane, slept with a guy, let's call him Cliff, a while back. She apparently confessed it to her husband months later. Obviously, there were several issues in their marriage, and they gave couples therapy a shot. That didn't go where they needed it to, and they've been in divorce proceedings for a while. It may be concluded by now. Diane and Cliff have continued to see each other. Diane lives in a different state than we do, so we only see her a few times a year. Most of my knowledge about this situation comes from my girlfriend, but Diane's divorce has come up when we've met over the last year. It's not a secret. Diane had an overnight layover here. My girlfriend and I met her for dinner. We were having a pleasant conversation, and at a break, I asked, "How's Cliff?" Oh boy. Apparently, not the right thing to ask. I got a meek response in, he's fine. Both of them stared daggers at me. The rest of dinner was a little awkward. Back at home, my girlfriend is aghast that I'd let on to Diane that she'd gossiped. I was absolutely convinced that Cliff had been mentioned in a previous dinner between us. My girlfriend is 100% sure that's not the case. My counter is, even still, it seems perfectly reasonable that she would have told me, "Hey, Sam and Diane are getting divorced, and she's seeing this new guy Cliff." I didn't ask, "How's the dude who was the catalyst to your divorce?" I simply asked, "How's Cliff?" This is likely going to be a little bump in their friendship, if that, but I'm really questioning myself for it. Not the a-hole. It's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. It's like if someone had a new boyfriend or girlfriend. You ask them, "Hey, how is your current partner doing?" Not the a-hole. I think it was a reasonable assumption on your part that it was okay to mention Cliff. I love how you used the characters' names from Cheers as pseudonyms. If it was such a big secret, your girlfriend should have told you. And really, her friend shouldn't have told her either. Everybody knows that romantic partners usually share secrets with each other, right? I wouldn't worry about it, as it will probably blow over soon. Not the a-hole. As a girlfriend who has a fellow with a loose tongue, I always remind him that he shouldn't bring up before meals or meeting with friends. Plus, you were just asking. It's not like you said it in front of her ex-husband. Also, this is probably on your girlfriend for not just telling her friend that you knew.